So after you did that work with the video, we can clearly see that the author does a lot of work in the video to lead readers to think that this is a bad kid, a troublemaker. The author pushes us to see the kid that way. Even if you might think differently, you may be a very sympathetic reader. Can you ask yourself, why would most readers think this boy is bad? What details does the author give that shape people's perspective that makes many people think the character as a troubled kid? We can see by his choice of clothing, it's very dark. He's wearing a hoodie. He's kind of being sneaky. When he came into the apartment, we can see how disappointed his mother looks when she closes her eyes. We can also see that he's about to start spray painting. We're noticing how the author has layered all these details to deliberately lead us to think a certain way about the character. This is part of the author's techniques. Let's continue with this investigation. We know that the boy will change. Were you extra alert at the moment where you saw this change? For me, it wasn't until the end of the video, the first time I saw it, when we saw that spray painted flowers for him. For some of you, it might have been when he grabbed the flowers or when his mom smiled, because a lot of people think that, oh, he's probably not a bad kid if he's getting flowers. We don't entirely know what the reason is until the end, but these are little clues that the author is giving us before we finish the work. The work that you're doing is fascinating because it shows how in some stories, characters don't change, but it's our perspective of them that changes. When readers have these sudden realizations, those are called epiphanies. You'll know you've had an epiphany when you feel that kind of aha moment. So if you haven't already, go ahead and make sure you add to our anchor chart when investigating perspective readers consider. Today we're adding, how does their own perspectives on characters change? And this can be you or the narrator. Did the character change, or did our perception of this character change? This is important because sometimes characters do change because characters go through character development, but sometimes we didn't notice those secret details about who the character was in reality. Sometimes our thinking, readers, this thinking doesn't only work in that video. Though that video was a great example, you're going to be reading lots of well-written stories where authors will lead you to think certain ways about your characters. Here's the thing. The way your perspective changes on a character won't always be as simple as it was in that video. And maybe something more subtle, like we're coming to know the boy's dad better and how to transform your everyday, ordinary hoop court into a higher place of learning and you at the podium. Or it may be the character does change and you suddenly notice it. The main thing is to be alert of these epiphanies and these realizations of change as we're reading our stories. When you go off to read today, make sure you add this work into your interpretation of your story in your reading journal. Make sure you're keeping track of your thinking. So, during your reading today, make sure you're thinking about the characters' perspectives, their needs and desires, what's getting in their way, what experiences have shaped their perspectives. Make sure we pay attention to the perspectives of the minor characters. Pay attention to the clues hiding in their dialogue. Pay attention to the clues hiding in their behaviors. Who is telling the story? How does their perspective or our own perspective shape how we see these characters? Did the character change, or did the perception of this character change? We might not be able to get to this work today in our reading, depending on where you are in your stories. That's why when we're reading, make sure you're thinking about all these things in your reading log as we're moving forward, because you're always having more epiphanies as we continue reading.